All right, number 7. What are the missing measures in parallelogram SRQP? So we're given that measure of angle 9 is 82 degrees. So let's go ahead and write that here. The measure of angle 2 is 35 degrees. And the measure of angle 5 is 46 degrees. And I'm not even going to worry about the questions yet. I'm going to fill in what I know using the properties of parallelogram. So here, when we have a diagonal in a parallelogram, it creates alternate interior angles. So that means that angle 5 is going to be congruent to angle 1. So I also know that this is 46 degrees. And that same diagonal creates this alternate interior angle. So that means that the measure of angle 2 is congruent to the measure of angle 6. So that means this is 35 degrees. Well, if this is angle 9 and angle 11 are vertical angles, so I know this is 82 degrees. All right, so now hopefully you see that this shape is a triangle, and we know that the angles of a triangle add up to 180. So this plus this plus this has to equal 180. So 35 plus 82 plus angle 3 has to equal 180. So this gives us 117 plus the measure of angle 3 equals 180. And now we can solve that by minusing the 117 from both sides. And so that tells us that the measure of angle 3 is going to be equal to 63 degrees. So, let's see if I have a different color for that. Let's do this one. So, measure of angle 3 is 63 degrees. And so, just like down here with the alternate interior angles, this diagonal creates alternate interior angles. So, angle 3 is congruent to angle 7. So, this is 63 degrees. And let's see. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this 82, and this right here is a nice straight line. So these angles, angles 10 and 11, form a linear pair, and a linear pair are going to add up to 180. So the measure of angle 10 plus the measure of angle 11, which is 82, has to equal 180. So if we subtract 82 from both sides, we're going to know what the measure of angle 10 is. So this goes away. So the measure of angle 10 is going to be equal to, we're going to borrow 98 degrees. So the measure of angle 10 is going to be 98 degrees. So since this is 98 degrees, that means angle T here is 98 degrees. And so now I can use this triangle to figure out what the measure of angle 8 is. So the three angles have to add up to 180. So 46 plus 98 plus the measure of angle 8 has to equal 180. So that's going to give me 144 plus the measure of angle 8 equals 180 minus the 144 from both sides. So minus the 144 and so that's going to tell us that the measure of angle 8 is going to be 36 degrees. So now that I know the measure of angle 8 is 36 degrees, this diagonal creates this alternate interior angle, so I know this is 36 degrees. So if you want to see if all your work is right, what you could do is take angle P, which would be these two angles added up, plus angle Q, these two, plus angle R, these two, plus angle S, add all those numbers up, and they should equal 360. So if you want, you can take out a calculator and check it. I'm not going to check it. All right, so now we can answer the questions. So the measure of angle 6, so we have the measure of angle 6. Oh, that was 35 degrees. The measure of angle 11 was 82 degrees. The measure of angle 10, here we go. The measure of angle 10 was 98 degrees. And the measure of angle 3 was 63 degrees. So now we're going to find the measure of angle PQR. So we'll do PQR, PQR, so it's going to be these two angles added up. So we're just going to do 63 plus 36, and that's 99. That's 99 degrees. And then the last one is going to be QRS. So QRS, so it's going to be these two added up. 46 plus 35 gives us 81, and so that's 81 degrees. All right, take a look at number 8. Which of the shapes listed below are parallelograms, and which of the shapes below are not parallelograms? So, if you think about the special properties of a parallelogram, that would make a parallelogram. So, if the opposite sides are congruent, that would be a parallelogram. So, A is a parallelogram. One of the properties of a parallelogram is that the opposite angles are congruent. So I have one pair of opposite angles congruent, but not both pair. So B is not a parallelogram. So now as we look at C, we have parallel lines, and we have the opposite sides congruent. Unfortunately, though, that's not enough information, because I could actually draw this line right here, and it would still be congruent, but obviously this shape would not be a parallelogram. So there's nothing to lock that segment in place. So C is not a parallelogram. D, if you notice in D, they are telling you that this angle here and this angle here are congruent, and that makes these lines parallel. And so what happens when these lines are parallel, this is actually going to end up making a parallelogram, because if I know the one set of parallel sides and that parallel sides happen to be congruent, then the shape ends up to be a parallelogram. So D is a parallelogram. And the last one, not enough information. This is just showing that we have vertical angles, and none of our properties talked about vertical angles, so we don't know about that one. So we're going to say no.